And greetings, kings and queens. Welcome back to the Always a Queen, the Metamorphosis platform for another Sunday afternoon live broadcast. Thank you very much for being here. I can see that we already have quite a few people watching us live. You are watching us right now on Facebook, on YouTube, and also on Twitter. We are super happy to have you here. And I want you to know this is going to be a program to remember. So here's what I'd like you to do. Don't watch this alone. You will regret it. I promise you, you're going to want to be here for this live, even though it's been recorded and you can always go and watch it again. All the recordings are uploaded on the Facebook and the YouTube page, so you can watch them into perpetuity. But the live broadcast, that's where it's at. You want to be here to catch this live. And you also want to share it with your friends and family. So do that now. Take a moment and call up your friend or send them a text or a WhatsApp. Let them know that the Always the Queen, the Metamorphosis broadcast is happening right now and they need to log on and watch. Now, clearly I'm not doing it alone today. You know, I'm usually a lone ranger here, but not today. Today, I brought backup because what we're going to unpack here today, I couldn't possibly do this by myself. I brought in the experts. I said what I said. I brought in the experts, and I'm going to give them an opportunity to introduce themselves to the Always a Queen, the Metamorphosis platform. I don't think either of them have ever been here as guests before. This is your first time. Okay. So, yeah. So let's begin with Jamila. Jamila, greet the people.
Well, greetings, all the queens out there and the kings. I'm sure there are some kings watching as well, because Therese did tell me that she has quite a bit of a male following. My name is Jamila Kirwan, and I'm a trained broadcast journalist. Pleasure to be here, and pleasure to be talking on a topic that I've always wanted to speak on, but didn't feel that I was an expert. But here I am being introduced as an expert, but an expert by self-knowledge and, of course, through experience. And so, Therese, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to sit here with you and with my bona fide friend, Sella Bella, and I'll let her take it away to introduce herself now.
All right.
Well, thank you so much, Jamila and Therese. Thank you for the invitation. Like Jamila, I am going to admit and make sure that everyone watching knows that I am not an expert. I am an expert through experience and through lots of reading over the last 10 years based on those experiences. So I'm Marcella Andre. I am a communication specialist, media specialist, a lover of life, a lover of people. Here I am.
All right. Thank you, queens. Listen, we love the fact that you took the time out to be here this afternoon. Here on the Always a Queen, the Metamorphosis platform, we love to honor people's time. We believe that time is a very valuable gift. It's a piece of your life that you will never get back. And so we are going to express gratitude before the program even gets on the way for the time that you are giving us here today. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
All right.
And if we're thinking of our time, once it's being used for such a purpose, then we are glad to give it away.
Awesome. So today, folks, our topic is narcissism. Yes, you heard right. Narcissism. We're going to be giving you all the tea. Okay, maybe not all. We're going to give you as much tea as we can dish out today. We may not be able to give you all. We're going to give you as much as we are able to in the time that we have. Okay? So we want to start off by talking about exactly what narcissism is. And where I'm taking it, from the bottom, because I don't want to assume that anybody just knows what we're talking about, and so they can just kind of just pick up wherever we happen to jump in. So let's jump in from the very start and talk about exactly what narcissism is. So I'm going to kick off the discussion with that, and then we will flow into some other things from there. So I know that narcissism and narcissistic behavior, that these are terms that you see floating around on the internet quite a lot. It tends to be very trendy and it's a buzzword. People just call people narcissistic very randomly because they assume that whatever behavior that person is displaying is narcissistic, it fits the description, and they must be narcissistic. Narcissism is definitely a self-centered personality trait, which makes it very easy for a lot of people to get labeled as narcissistic. We want you this afternoon to understand that not everybody who is self-centered is necessarily narcissistic. So we want you to, instead of just randomly labeling people, follow us through this discussion so that you can become, how should I say, more skilled at identifying who the narcissists are versus who the people are who just don't know how to act sometimes, because there are a lot of those out there, right? So the people who don't know how to act, they're out here in the streets, but it's a self-centered personality style. It's characterized by what I want to call an excessive, maybe even an obsessive preoccupation with themselves and what they need. The thing that separates them from other people, though, is that they often do it at the expense of people who they claim to love. I mean, they love you, but do they? Is the question.
No, they don't.
No, they don't. They don't, right? They don't. You could possibly have somebody who is a little self-centered who actually does love you. That can happen. The narcissist, on the other hand, no. They don't love you. Maybe they love what you can do for them. Or maybe they love how they feel when you're in their life. Or maybe they love the image that people have of them when they are associated with you. They could love a lot of things. What they cannot love is you.
That's right.
Yeah. So I just wanted to start it off with that. Let's just put that out there early.
Yes.
Now, yes?
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes,
Another thing I wanted to add, since we're just defining it and laying the groundwork, I also want to say that narcissism can happen on a continuum. It can happen on a spectrum. People talk about autism happening on a spectrum. And so you can go from very mild to perhaps very severe cases. Narcissism can occur in much the same way on a spectrum. And for the purpose of this discussion, we want to say that we are going to be staying on a particular part of this spectrum, okay? Because if we go to the very, very severe ends of the spectrum, then we are entering into a clinical discussion. And by clinical, I mean that the person is in the care of a clinician, a psychologist, a psychotherapist like myself, and has been officially diagnosed with a mental health disorder. Okay? On that severe end of the spectrum, there is a disorder which is referred to as narcissistic personality disorder. It is absolutely officially a mental health condition that is recorded in the DSM, which is our Bible, the psychotherapist Bible. You can be diagnosed with it, officially treated for it. You can claim, insurance on it. It's a thing. However, we're not going to be tackling the people who are on that severe end of the spectrum. These people, we're going to leave them for the clinicians to handle. We're not taking this on from a clinical perspective tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk about the people who are more in the middle and maybe on the milder end of the spectrum. The guys on the street
cause a whole lot of trouble.
But they still listen. You don't have to be on the severe end of the spectrum to turn somebody's life into a bowl of yogurt. That's the moral of the story.
Exactly.
I mean, they bad on this end, they bad on that end. You just want to kind of avoid them all. But I'm just saying, we're going to tackle the people on the lower end for you. We may come back and tackle the people on the upper end another time. You never know. You have to keep following the Always a Queen platform in order to know this. Okay? All right. So let's jump into this discussion. Greetings to all of the queens who are in the chat section. The chat section is popping already. We haven't even the topic yet. Greetings, Saran and Emerald and Natasha and Aisha and Andy and Serene and Monique. I see you. Thank you so much for being here. All right, let's get into it. We don't have all night. Let's talk about the types of narcissists that we can encounter walking on the street, because clearly it is not safe out here. Help us out.
I love that. It's not safe in these streets.
It's not safe in these streets.
I'm kind of happy that you went into the clinical aspect of things and sort of did that bit of housekeeping, Therese, because clearly we cannot be walking around like self-styled experts and diagnosing someone with NPD. It is not our job, and we're not gifted in that way. Mm-hmm. But I think what we can absolutely look at is the patterns of behavior that you can actually say that person is displaying a narcissistic pattern. And let me also say that as human beings, all of us are narcissistic in some way, shape, or form. But you did mention that it's on a spectrum. Mm-hmm. So whereas you might find somebody's particularly selfish or arrogant or overconfident, that does not mean that they are a full-blown narcissist. It doesn't mean that they are a narcissist. It just means that they are a little bit into themselves or self-absorbed. But one of the clear patterns is that they lack empathy. And you did mention that they are opportunistic. They will use you for what they can get. And so that person that you call your friend, who hangs around you, who claims to like you, that term going around nowadays, fake friends. And then you realize that you have a group of fake friends around you, and all of a sudden, hey, where did they come from? But they were always there. They're always there mooching off of you or always standing next to you because they think that maybe some sort of influence that you have may fall off on them. You may be able to hook them up with the right person. You may be able to lend them a couple of dollars, or they come to your house just to sap your energy. So there are so many ways that we could start this topic. But I just wanted to put that out there, that you are correct. Not everybody can be branded as a narcissist. And there are so many different types. We can't cover them all, obviously, but we meet them all the time. We meet them in our workplaces, in our friendship groups, in our families. And when they're in our intimate relationships, that's when all hell breaks loose. And that's one of my major experiences in intimate relationships where, as you said, somebody can turn your life into a bowl of yogurt. But I'm going to let Sela do her spiel as well if she wants to add to that, and we can get into the discussion.
Yes, well, since Therese wanted us to kind of give people an idea of the types of narcissism that we have out there, and as you just mentioned, we need to look at some of the characteristics of narcissism. So, one of the things that you will encounter is grandiosity. And when we speak about grandiosity, that is actually a type of narcissism, grandiose. It is people who think that they are God's special gift. I mean, we are all God's special gifts, right? It is people
Let's
who
clarify
think
that.
that I am the one who has been whispered to. I am the one who has been given the keys to everything in the world. I am the one. I am the one that knows it all. I am the one that does it better than everyone. I am the one that knows the best people. Just think of a person who, no matter what context it is, grandiose. Everything revolves around them, around their thoughts, around what they consider to be worthy. Now, if you happen to be in their lives, that's because they consider you worthy for the moment. We're going to talk more about that because it's only for the moment. All right.
Ouch.
So
And
you
sorry, go ahead, Stella.
have these that's one of the characteristics of narcissism. You also have what you can call a cerebral narcissist. And these are people who use their intellect and their intelligence. These people you'll probably meet in the workplace. And one of the things that you need to know is that they're great at what they do. They use that intellect, they use that talent to also manipulate and control. Okay? So you have grandiose as a characteristic, you have covert and overt. So I'm going to speak about the covert and I'm going to let Jamila speak about the overt. A covert, like the word says, we specialize in words. Covert represents to what is not visibly seen. It's not clear when you first come across it. It's lying under there quietly, but it exists. And the covert narcissists, they're special. They use manipulation, emotional manipulation to get through to you. So they are there. They lack empathy. That is one of the traits of all narcissists, all people with narcissistic personality disorder, that is. They lack empathy, which means that they cannot relate to your feelings. And as a result, they don't care about your feelings. They don't give two hoots about your feelings. Okay? So a lack of empathy is one of the prime traits of all narcissists. Some of them on the spectrum in greater or lesser degrees. Okay? Jamila, how about malignant, malignant, overt narcissism, pardon me.
And just to add to that,
Covert.
the pervasive character trait is the lack of empathy for all narcissists, is that they're fundamentally incapable of caring for you. They may look like they care because they can mimic. They mirror you. So they can tell how you're going to feel if they say, "Hey, I'm so sorry I heard about your mom." And it sounds like they're being genuine, but they're not. All they're doing is just acting because they know what triggers you. They're very smart like that, manipulation. So an overt, and you would have said some of it in the explanation of the grandiose. The overt, as the word entails, they're out there. They think they're God's gift, whereas, the covert is hiding, and covert means hidden. Overt, look at me. And not everybody that says, "Look at me," because I did go in for queen. Not everybody that says, "Look at me," means that they're narcissistic. It means perhaps that they're confident, perhaps that, they know that they're capable of certain things, and they just have that kind of do it, go get a attitude. An overt person, as Marcella says, is God's gift. They're out there. Sometimes you can hear them before you see them. They're attention hogs. They walk into a room and they want everybody swarming over them. Now, it does happen to certain people, they are swarmed, and that's because they have an engaging personality. An overt narcissist is very charismatic. They can attract moth to a flame. They're like flames, a moth to a flame kind of thing. And so they have this out there personality, this gregarious personality, and it does attract people to come towards them. So when you get into their sphere and you get to be personable with them, be in a relationship with them, or be friends with them, that's when you see the mask start slipping, and then you know what you're dealing with.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in and say that if you notice from the discussion that we're already having, that narcissism does not only occur in romantic relationships. And I feel like that is a school of thought that is out there somewhere. It is an erroneous school of thought. You can find a narcissist in pretty much any relationship. It can be in sibling relationships, parent-child relationships, cousins, friends, colleagues. This is not just about spouses and partners. And so that's one of the myths we want to debunk here today. And so the narcissists are not just people that you date. Narcissists can be in any relationship that you are in.
Exactly.
Yes. And Therese, I just wanted to add to that by saying the truth is a lot of people, I would say, like Jamila and I, we have a very close relationship. Some people know that, some people don't, but now you know. One of the things that caused us to start really studying narcissism, you would have come into contact with it through an intimate relationship. But then when you really started thinking about it, many people are out there walking around having grown up with narcissists very close to them. It could be their mother, it could be their father, it could be a brother. And unfortunately, that kind of predisposes us to conditioning and attracting narcissists. And that is how both of us, we came through. We studied, like I said, narcissism as a result of relationships that we had been in that were terrible, traumatic, awful. And, we started looking at the signs and realizing this is what's going on. And at this point, I really have to say to somebody named Melissa Elliott. Melissa Elliott is a friend of mine. She was the first person who, at the time that I was telling her about a relationship that I was having and some issues that I had been going through at the time, like I was terribly, terribly broken. And she pointed out, all of this stuff sounds to me like this is narcissism. And at that point, I really started researching it. So yes, it's not just romantic relationships. It's your mother, it's your brother, it's your cousin. So they're all around you.
They are. And just to add to that, it's due to the intimate relationship, because you've spent quite a lot of time with that person, and you're able to see for yourself the types of patterns that they come into the house, they make you walk on eggshells, the gaslighting, and we'll get into all of that, but this is just me setting the stage for that. Once you are able to identify those, after you see that and you go out into the world, you're trying to figure out, wait, these people were there all along? Now I can identify it in a colleague or a friend or a former friend or your aunt or whatever the case may be. And there are times when you are able to manage those relationships down because maybe you're not exposed to them regularly, so you can handle maybe going to the staff party and then you're going home. But once you're in an intimate relationship, that's when it gets really, really tricky. Or you're exposed to this person for long periods. That's when it gets really, really tricky. And like Marcelo, I started researching just by going on Google and saying, I put in certain types of behavior. And that's when I was able to say, my God, is this what I'm dealing with? And then I started assessing over a period of time. But one thing I also want to say is that you don't need to label someone as a narcissist to know that it's time to leave or that this person is, displaying toxic patterns. You don't need to label someone as a narcissist if it does not If it's affecting you badly, making you feel less than, or making you feel terrible, or you're actually seeing signs in front of you that this is going to lead me to hell and back, then you know that's when you can make your decisions. But as we progress, we will get into more of it.
Yeah. All right. Okay. I feel like we have laid the foundation. I want us to start talking a little bit about some of those buzzwords that I keep hearing being mentioned. Because as we get deeper into the discussion, I think the buzzwords are going to keep coming up.
Yes.
They're going to be more and more frequent. I want to make sure those who are watching and listening to us understand what we mean when we say, for example, narcissists are really good at gaslighting. What is about? Let's run down the list of some of these buzzwords that are often associated with narcissistic behavior, so that we can, give the people a little bit of insight. What do these mean? And we can start with the one that I just mentioned, gaslighting. I hear that a lot. People use that word a lot. I don't know that people understand what gaslighting is. I have often had to explain what gaslighting is to people because it gets twisted into all kinds of different things. Would one of you like to break it down for us? What exactly is gaslighting?
Jamila, I'm going to give that one to you. She does a good job with gaslighting.
Well,
Yes.
One of the things that I like to start that off with is it's a little lengthy, but there's a story behind that word and why it was coined in the first place. It comes from a 1940s movie where this lady fell in love with this really charismatic gentleman. Little did she know that he was a con artist who had actually murdered her aunt years before. And he thought she had some diamonds on her. She wanted to steal it. Her aunt was very rich. After he married her niece, they moved into the aunt's house. And so every night he would go upstairs looking for these diamonds. And she's thinking she's hearing noises upstairs because upstairs was barred off. And of course, in the 1940s, they would have used these gas lamps. So wherever you go in the house and you turn on the gas lamp, if a light is on in another room, it would dim as the gas made its way through the gas line. And so she would tell him, he used to go out for walks, and when he came back and she would say, I think somebody's in the house. I'm hearing noises upstairs. And he's telling her, no, you're hearing things. And she'd say, but I would see the gas lamp dim. And he'd say, no, you're seeing things. And slowly, over a period of time, he started making her think she was crazy. That's another thing, crazy making. He would remove pictures off the wall and then claim that she had taken it and hidden it somewhere. He would hide her brooch that he gave her as a gift and made her think that she lost it. And then he found it and started making her feel like she was going crazy. And in the end, of course, she found out who he was after being made into a crazy person, treated by psychiatrists and that sort of thing. So that's where the word gaslighting came from, meaning that somebody would make you doubt your sanity. They would tell you things to make you think, but wait a minute, but you said that. No, I didn't. But you did that. No, I didn't.
True.
That actually is mostly gaslighting. And like she said at the end of what she was just explaining here, crazy making is the other thing that you need to be aware of. So gaslighting becomes crazy making.
Indeed.
Because once the person has made you question everything, made you question every situation or experience that you've had, you then begin to doubt yourself. It is an emotional abuse tactic that slowly depletes your self-esteem, your sense of self. And that's why it's called crazy making, because you start thinking, maybe I'm losing it. Maybe I'm not okay. So crazy making and gaslighting go together.
Exactly. Yeah. Do you want to throw another one at us?
Jump in and say. I just want to jump in and say that, sometimes the gaslighting and the crazy making, they can show up in some very mundane day-to-day situations. And so I don't want us to go away with the idea that it's always very extreme. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it can be an extreme situation like the one that Jamila just described, but sometimes it shows up in the day-to-day
Very subtly.
mundane activities of life, where you may have a partner who you cannot tell that you're not having a good day, for example. And I'm putting myself out there. This has actually happened to me, where I have this partner who I cannot tell that I'm having a bad day, right? What would happen whenever I did that is that the conversation would somehow end up being about the partner, about him, because I would say, oh my gosh, I'm having such a terrible day today. I feel so down in the dumps. This happened, that happened, the other. And I'm sharing this in an effort to get perhaps some
Empathy.
empathy,
Mm-hmm.
some comfort from my partner. And what I would get instead is guilt tripping. Like he would guilt trip me for saying that I was having a bad day. Because when I have a bad day, it somehow reflects badly on him because it's as if he is not doing a good job as a partner or something. Do you see how confused I am right now?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
I legitimately do not know how he used to do that, but he was so good at it. By the time
Mm-hmm.
he was done, he would be like, "No, and you just make me feel so bad. You always make me feel so bad." And I would, by the time he was done, I would be like, "Sorry, I
You're apologizing. You're
I'm
apologizing.
apologizing." Yes, because I didn't mean to make you feel bad. I wasn't trying to say that you're not a good partner, or that, you're not making me happy, or I would end up apologizing to
So it
him.
becomes about them rather than you.
I mean,
Look at her face,
oh,
Marcella.
this was back in the day. I'm smarter now. But I'm just saying, this is how it can show up in just your everyday life. It doesn't always have to be an extreme wild situation where you are married to a con artist and he's hiding things.
Mhm.
It can happen that way, but it can also just show up in the day-to-day living your life, and they just gaslight you. They find a way to literally make you think you're the problem. And
Exactly.
you are
Exactly.
legit confused as to why you're the problem, but you still find yourself apologizing for being the problem.
Hmm. And just to jump in there, you know where that comes from. It comes from a lack of truly being able to regulate their own emotions because they can't own their own emotions. They're very base individuals who don't have the full spectrum of emotions. And so, in order for them to, let's say, own their emotions, they have to put it on you. You have to be the problem. I'm not the problem, you are. I'm a good partner. Why are you having a bad day? This is an insult to me. So it's sometimes
Yes.
if you are even having a good day, they're vexed because you're having a good day. How dare you have a good day? So it's confusing. It's totally confusing.
Part of the
I'm just gonna drink my non-alcoholic drink.
Let's
I'm
tell
drinking
everybody it's
water.
not
We're
alcohol.
drinking water over here, okay? But I wanted to add that part of that crazy making, part of the reason that they do it is because at their core, people who have narcissistic personality disorder, and a lot of people that we call narcissists who are on the spectrum, let's say, the truth is that they really do not have a great sense of self-esteem. They do not have any
Mhm.
self-esteem. They do not consider themselves highly. They're very empty on the inside. You know, they're very, very empty on the inside. And so that is why they try to manipulate sources on the outside. Supply, and that's another term that we should talk about. They try to manipulate the supply in order for them to feel good. And there's always a supply. So since we're on this term, a supply is the person who is giving that narcissist everything that they need to keep them going. They're giving them the attention, they're giving them the means of someone and something to manipulate, something to make them feel like I am worthy in this moment and in this time. They're always there, and they're always looking for somebody who they think makes them feel, not even feel whole, just feel.
Because they're fundamentally incapable of feeling. So the supply gives fuel. So the external validation is what validates them. They have nothing inside. And as Marcella said, they are empty. So they absolutely cannot feel. They look like human beings. They walk around just like all of us. Yes, they bleed when you cut them. And if you pinch them, they'll say, ouch. But when we talk about emotions, their emotions are totally dysregulated. And so they are incapable of regularizing their own emotions. And so somebody giving them a like on Facebook or going up on stage and everybody is praising them, that gives them a source of fuel and it makes them euphoric, but it doesn't last long. And so they go after the next fuel supply. And after that runs out, they go after a next one. And that is why you will find that so many partners are womanizers. They run around and they do all these crazy things, and they always have a harem. They always have like 1, 2, 3 over there, one in Anguilla, one in Trinidad, one in London, one and one down the road.
Let's make sure, Jamila, let's make sure we remind everybody that both men and women can be narcissists, okay? So we're not just talking about boyfriends. We're also speaking about girlfriends. Again, anyone, any gender,
yes,
can be a narcissist. So, you know, we don't want to, because of course we are going to talk about our own experiences in a little bit. We of course will be speaking about, you know, male partners, but in reality it could be anybody. So don't get hung up on that for the guys who are watching and who will say, oh, and what about the women? As we know they love.
Yes, thanks for that disclaimer, Stella.
Good point. Another buzzword, love bombing.
Ha!
What's love bombing?
That's the way they start.
Yes, that's the way they start.
So,
and they come in fast and furious. But go ahead, Stella.
Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce the love bombing, and then Jamila is going to continue with what happens after love bombing. So, love bombing, like the word, if you think of a bomb, boom, it's quick and it's, you know, it's everything. It gets your attention. Narcissists will meet somebody and they will tell you all the things that you love to hear. They will tell you how great you are. They will do lovely things for you. And usually the things that they do, unfortunately, in the daily scheme of life, most people are not doing those things. So you will find that they're going out of their way to do things which you say, wow, you know, that's never been done before. Wow, nobody ever did this for me before. And we are human beings. We get taken in by nice people and nice things. So like we mentioned before, they're very charismatic, okay? Either they're very funny, they're great to talk to, there's something about them that pulls you in to begin with. So with the love bombing, when they start by doing all these nice things that pull you in. But in addition to that, especially if it's a romantic situation, you're going to hear that I love you very soon. If it's not a romantic situation, you're going to hear you're the best cousin, brother, sister, whatever. You're going to hear all the things that tell you you are the greatest. Okay? They are love bombing you. They're saying that there's nobody I have ever met like you. All right? Nobody in this world like you. So I'm sure somebody...
I want to highlight this comment here.
Exactly, Saran.
Yes, Saran.
They will buy you gifts. They will do just stuff that you're like, wow, that is so sweet, you know? And then, Jamila, what happens next?
So that period of the love bombing, that stage is called the idealization stage, where they put you up on a pedestal. Now, that is not to say that you're not a queen, you know, and that is not to say that
Always
you're not
a
the
queen.
best thing since sliced, always a queen, right? That is not to say that you're not the best thing since sliced bread. That is not to say that you're not a wonderful person, because we all are. We have a big heart. We like to give. When many Antiguan men say, I love you very fast. I like Serene Prince. Oh my gosh. But Serene, oh gosh, that does not necessarily mean. But that is a flag, huh? That is a flag.
Red flag. Red flag. Red flag. Red flag.
A red flag. I should have walked with a red flag here. You know? So that is the idealization stage where they're doing. She has the giggles. She's still laughing. I remember in particular being told that I've never met anyone like you. No, which woman don't want to hear that? I've never met anyone like you. And it's always a criticism of the past, the former partner. She was this and she was that. Why couldn't I have met you how many years ago? And it's just a whole barrage of all the infractions that the former partner would have committed. And you are sucking all this up. You're eating this up and you're thinking, whoa, then hey, you know? And I mean, very, very many other things. Marcella mentioned buying gifts, saying I love you quickly. And then a certain period, it could take maybe 6 months, a year, maybe 2 weeks. You never know, depending on what kind of person you're dealing with. Then comes the devaluation stage, where all of a sudden it seems like the novelty has died. And all of a sudden you make too many mistakes. Why are you dressed like that? That makes you look fat. Don't let anybody fool you off. Don't you see how
not the
gain?
Comment.
Go out, don't embarrass me. Hello, Mommy Heather. Love you too. You know what? Don't embarrass me and don't talk to anyone. You know, just a whole lot of criticisms, and that starts to mess with you, chip away at your self-confidence. And you can imagine 3 of us and very many beautiful women walking around looking like we have it all together, and there's this partner or friend chipping away slowly at your not your ego, but your confidence. If you used to be involved in the media like I was, all of a sudden you disappear and you shut up, you small up yourself, because what this person is telling you, you're nothing. And it eventually gets to that. It may start small with little chips, little digs. And then eventually they're blatantly telling you that you're full of crap. And if I was educated like you, if I went to university like you, I would be a rocket scientist. So basically you're telling me that you're discrediting my education and I'm dumb. And that is just to make them appear taller. After the devaluation stage, once they start to accumulate other sources of fuel, then comes the discard. So once they start to put the other fuel sources, the supplies in place, then comes the, Marcella?
Discard. So there are 3 phases: the love bombing, the idealization phase, then comes the devaluation, and then comes the discard. All right. So you have to be very careful. You have to look at the signs. You have to look at patterns, by the way. Like we said, not everyone who's into themselves is necessarily a narcissist, okay? Because we should have a healthy amount of narcissism within us. That is what keeps us confident and keeps us going and so on. Yeah. But the destructive narcissism is the type that really damages people, and it's very, very destructive. The reason that we both agreed to come and do this is because we have had so many experiences, and those experiences have been destructive to us. You know, like Jamila said, you see us walking around, you don't know what demons we're battling, Thankfully, I think we are both at a very healthy place now.
Yes.
There was a time when Jamila was the person who had to pick me up off the ground, or my friend Mikkel. You know, these are two women in my life who have seen me at my worst. I have seen them at their worst, and a lot of it has been because of narcissists who were present in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Your interest?
First, I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to highlight two comments from the comment section that I want to acknowledge. I think they acknowledge just these two comments, and then I'm going to jump into something. So Heather says, positive social media platforms such as this has helped me tremendously. I didn't have the knowledge or the language to define or understand human behavior, particularly the characteristics of a narcissist, but my eyes are wide open. Thank you, Auntie Heather. We love you. Thank you for being here. Yes. And the other comment I would like to bring up, this one is actually a question from Aisha. Aisha says, could the love bombing be part of their strategy in the sense that they put you on such a high pedestal that you now fear the fall, i.e. losing their affection?
I think it is less, it's more them getting you to feel comfortable than the idea of you worrying about losing their affection, to tell the truth. It's getting you into such a space that you break down your walls, that you're okay with this person. That's what the love bombing does. I think you don't think about losing their affection until you kind of get to the devaluation stage.
Yeah.
When you start thinking, wait a minute, what did I do? Because now we are crazy making. Now we have gaslit you so much that you're now beginning to think you are a problem. So you better fix up yourself so that you don't lose them. But I do not think the love bombing phase is the phase where they're reeling
It's the
you
grooming
in.
stage. It is the grooming stage to suck you in. It is the grooming stage. But in truth, everything a narcissist does is strategy.
Yes.
It's strategy to
Agreed.
a T. Very Machiavellian. You know, so the love bombing is the grooming stage where they pull you in. They make you feel so euphoric. You can't wait for the next phone call, the next text, the next date night. And then all of a sudden you're moving in and you're telling your mom, now come back over so, and because you have found your soulmate, or you have found your twin flame, or whatever you want to call it. And then when the devaluation starts, you start wondering, okay, what's going on here? I'm not perfect enough. So you start to try to find a way to get back to that person that was once so meaningful to this individual. So I'm putting on a little weight. Let me take it back off. Or, I burned the food the last time. I have to make sure I don't do it again, because you're now walking on eggshells, trying to redeem yourself in their eyes because of something that you have done, some problem, some infraction that you have committed, and you have to fix it. But they keep moving the goalpost. And so what they also can do in that devaluation stage, and this is another term, is intermittent reinforcement. Intermittent reinforcement, and I don't want to confuse everybody, but because they're so intertwined, during the devaluation stage, the intermittent reinforcement is to give you a little injection of, see, I'm still here, I'm still that person.
A little top up.
Really nice, like a top up, They start doing really nice things, and then maybe a day after, a week after, they go back to the same old, but you're not going anywhere because you're now hooked. And that's where trauma bonding comes in. Marcella, you want to tackle that one? Because that happens during the devaluation stage, because you have made a connection during the love bombing and the idealization stage, where they put you up on a pedestal, and then the devaluation is when they're slowly tearing you down. So that's where you're trauma bonded to that individual.
Yes. Before I speak more about trauma bonding, I just want to mention the intermittent um,
Reinforcement.
reinforcement. The intermittent reinforcement is one of the most destructive things. It's the most destructive thing because you really do not understand what is happening. Okay? You found yourself in a situation where you have great recall of when that person was a stellar, fabulous, beautiful human being. And so there's a bit of a cognitive dissonance too, because you're like,
Here's another term.
cognitive dissonance, because you're saying, but this person and this person can't be the same person, because how are they behaving like this? It must be me. So it keeps coming back to you because you're thinking that person was wonderful. It must be me. So then this is what creates the trauma bond. You now are trauma, your body, your emotions, your everything. And listen, emotions live in your body. That's why people get sick a lot.
Exactly.
Emotions
So
that are not dealt with live in your body. And so you have all of this stuff that is within you, and you're trying to hang on to what you thought was real, which is not really real, but you don't realize that. So you're trying to hang on to it while at the same time dealing with the self depreciation that comes because that person is also beating you down. That person is also messing with your self-esteem, messing with your head, okay? Messing with your emotions. And so you are now in trauma and you want to leave, you're thinking shit, but you don't know where to go. You see how I'm talking right now? This is how you become messed up.
I just want to jump in and explain the cognitive dissonance so that people can understand when you're trying to figure out the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde personality, the Mr. Nice and then the monster. Who are these two people? So the cognitive dissonance, it's a psychological term, which means that your logic and your emotions are basically at war with each other. So you're not able to make an informed decision. And I also want to say here that there are a lot of people out there who judge women who stay in relationships like that. It has nothing to do with, and not all the time. It doesn't have to do with your level of intelligence. You could have degrees out the wazoo. Once you're talking about emotions, that's a whole different kettle of fish. Once you're talking about love and how you feel about someone, it is difficult to disentangle yourself from that. So that's where the cognitive dissonance comes in. Your logic and your emotions are at loggerheads. They're at each other.
I want to jump in here and say, and I'm speaking right now as a clinician. So I'm putting on my clinical hat right now, and I'm going to say that the dynamic, the psychological and emotional dynamic that is at work in the process of trying to free yourself from a trauma bond is far more than meets the eye. A lot of people judge what should and should not happen just based on what meets the eye. And by what meets the eye, I mean they see that this person is being abused, they see that the person that they're with is toxic, and on the surface it looks very simple. You just need to get up, pack your things, and walk out. But there is a psychological dynamic that is at work that is grounded in that same intermittent positive reinforcement principle that you just mentioned. It is positive reinforcement, and there is one of the pioneers, the founders of psychology, called Skinner, came up with a theory which is called behaviorism. And behaviorism is based in positive reinforcement. That's the whole basis of his theory. And it doesn't just apply to humans, it applies to living things in general. If a dog does a thing and you give it a treat, it will repeat that behavior.
Exactly.
If the dog does a thing and you punish or do something painful, it will stop the behavior. The brain is literally wired to respond to positive reinforcement by repeating the behavior. It's literally after a while, it's literally not you anymore. It's your brain doing it automatically for you because you keep receiving that positive reinforcement. It quite literally requires a rewiring of the brain, which people struggle to do on their own. More often than not, you need to get professional help to assist you with that rewiring of the brain so that you no longer respond to that positive reinforcement. The thing about the trauma bonds is that the positive reinforcement is interspersed with abusive behavior. But because your brain has been wired to respond to the positive reinforcement, you kind of just overlook that abusive behavior because you know more positive reinforcement is coming. It's like beating your dog and thinking he's not going to come back. Of course he's going to come back, because when he comes back, you give him a treat. He may get beaten again the next day, but at some point another treat will come. The treats are intermittent, but they are guaranteed. And so the dog keeps coming back. That's the psychological dynamic. And I don't think people understand how that grips you.
Yes.
It's like a vice grip. You don't just walk out of that. That requires sometimes therapeutic intervention for you to be able to escape that grip. I see that in my office all the time. It is the reason why women go back to abusive men, and even men going back to abusive women. It's not just, it's like I said, it is way more than meets the eye. And so let's not judge people who find themselves in situations like those. Let's help them. Because it runs so much deeper than people understand. So that's what I wanted to jump in with.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to add on that trauma bonding as well. One of the reasons that people also stay or don't address the situation is because of another term that we need to mention here, which is called future faking.
Future faking.
Future faking. It's the term.
Yep, and that is, and you're going to explain that, Cello?
I want you to do it. I'm just thinking about it. But future faking, I'll start. You can continue. Future faking is one of the things that the narcissist uses to make you feel things are going to get better. We're going to go on this wonderful trip together. We're going to build a brand new house. They tell you all of the things that are going to happen. There's no evidence that they're going to do it. There's no evidence of them having done something similar. But in the moment where you find yourself considering and wondering what's happening, they're telling you all of these future things that will and could and should happen. You know, I'm going to do better. I'm going to do this better the next time. Jamila, continue.
And all that simply makes you feel is that you have, you want to say what Utica is saying there? Stockholm syndrome, perhaps.
She's not the only person in the comment section who is asking.
Not far from Stockholm syndrome at all.
Not far.
It's not far. It's not far. There are very, very similar characteristics to Stockholm syndrome. One of them being that you may actually find that you are defending the person who is abusing or taking advantage of you, and you do have an emotional connection to them. The only difference is that when we talk about Stockholm Syndrome, we're usually referring to victims of kidnapping, people who've been held hostage, and those types of things.
Prisoners of
But there
war.
are a lot of prisoners of war and the like. And so there are a lot of similarities, although I don't know if I would say that it's definitely a case of Stockholm Syndrome, because you're not really being held hostage. The difference with Stockholm Syndrome is that usually the persons in that situation are being held hostage. So even if they want to leave, they cannot. When we are dealing with a narcissist, you are free to leave. You're just not psychologically able to do so.
Precisely.
Yeah.
You explained that so well. But the only simple thing is that in both cases, you have fallen in love with the enemy. That's basically it. That's the similarity right there. One you can't leave, the other you can. So just to finish up with future faking, it's basically them making you think that you have a future with them. That's just basically what it means. You have a future with them, you know, the big house, and the kids are going to be in this room and that room. Even if they're building a house, they make you think that you're going to be the woman of the house, you know, or they're going to buy a car and you're going to drive it. You know, you're going to be sporting off in this fancy new car, and then all of a sudden it's not you, it's your neighbor, or whatever the case may be. I'm just being silly. But future faking simply means I want you in my life. And that's what normal people do that too. Once they find the love of their lives and they think that they want to make a life with that person, they start to talk about future plans. And that's because they legitimately want to be in a relationship with you. But for a narcissist, again, it's strategy, because they know that's what you want to hear.
Yeah. I want to highlight just a few comments before we move on. Just a few. There's so many comments. I am not going to be able to get to every single comment. So let me just say that. Don't come for me, people. I am going to just highlight a few comments as we go along. If we try to read every single comment, we will not have time. So let me pull up this one here. Heather says, why do you think there are so many of them among us? Is it childhood trauma, totally mental imbalance? What do you think?
Well, I'm not going to go on what I think. I'm going to go on what I have read, and over all of these years that I've been researching and learning more about it, it really seems that narcissists are, you know, we have the discussion about whether it's nature or nurture. And from most of what I read, it's nurture. It comes from the children being in situations where either they also have a narcissistic parent, either they have been overloved or underloved. That's the easiest way of putting it. They have been overloved, where they've been grown up and made to think that the world revolves around them, or they've been in a situation where they've been neglected. And so both things cause them to then create this different self. So that's what I've read.
And that different self is normally referred to as the false self. So they've created another persona because they can't own the one that they were born with. They have discarded that self and they've created a new one that they think is wonderful and worthy and beautiful. And then any criticisms that come their way, oh, it's not me, it's you. So it's always a deflection. That false self is never wrong. That false self can never have any imperfections. I mean, the biggest case of a grandiose narcissist on the world stage would definitely be the president before Joe Biden. That is a classic grandiose narcissist who was overloved and told that he had the keys to the universe.
Yeah, he could do no wrong.
That's how they're not born narcissists. Their environment creates them. So you who have children have to really start thinking about, what am I doing? How am I raising my child?
Yeah.
Am I creating a narcissist?
Absolutely.
We
Sunshine
have a
Lucian
comment there.
says, what I experienced was when I caught on that satanic agent. Oh boy, and began to gain strength to walk away. I experienced physical abuse. Usually, I'm very sorry to hear that you went through that. Usually, you heard, why not walk away? But I couldn't because of fear, and I was bonded by trauma. This
Yes,
is
indeed.
so real. This is so
Yes, indeed.
real.
And I know Sunshine, and I know of her story, and I must commend you for the strength that you would have gained from that terrible situation. I'm glad you're here tonight, and I'm sure you have even imparted some knowledge to others, just as we are doing this evening, because we have also been through those types of traumatic situations as well. So I'm
Yeah.
really glad to see you in the comments, Sunshine.
Yes.
Me too.
She's living her best life. We love you, Sunshine.
Great.
I have
As
to
you
bring up
should.
this comment. I have to bring up this comment.
Yes.
There's often grief with separating from a toxic partner, and that's okay. Thank you so much for this,
Yes,
Serene.
indeed. Because
We
it is a
don't
death.
talk about this enough.
It is a loss. It is a
Mm.
loss. You have to mourn something that you're losing, particularly if you were in a long-term relationship, a long-term marriage, you have history with the person. You do have to grieve it because it is a death. You are losing something. And it is okay to
It
grieve.
is. It is. And two things can be true at the same time. You can be grieving and sad that the person is no longer in your life because you are with them for years, and you are grieving the loss of all the things that you envisioned would have happened with
Yes.
that person. You are grieving, truly grieving, but at the same time, you're also fully aware that you are much better off without them.
Exactly.
And
And
having them
even
in
just
your
fear
life
that makes you
is
leave.
destructive. Yeah.
Fear,
And
sometimes
both
fear makes
things
you
are
stay,
true.
but when you get afraid enough, you leave. You have to, because
Yeah.
you become fearful for your life, fearful for your children, and so the fear is what makes you leave sometimes.
Yeah. So both things can be true, and I've often had clients who have struggled with this, and they're literally confused. They're like, "Why do I miss this person? And they were so awful to me, but I miss them so much." And I'm like, "Listen, one thing does not cancel out the other.
Exactly. You
They
gotta deep
can
know
be,
for that person.
yes, they can be existing in your brain simultaneously. The grief is there, but also the relief that you are no longer in that situation.
And the will
And
to
they
live.
coexist. Yes, they coexist in your brain for a while until you are able to move past that. It's a process. It's a process.
Yeah.
And so I want to reassure anybody who may be going through this right now that
Yes.
it's okay if grieving. You can grieve and still know that you definitely do not ever want to be in a relationship with that person again because they are toxic and destructive.
Mhm.
But you're sad. It's okay. It's okay. You can experience those dual emotions and you will survive. It'll be fine.
There's
Right?
another term. Are we still with the terms? I think we got into talking.
Go ahead. I was just about to bring up another one. Go ahead.
Hoovering?
Hoovering. We haven't talked about hoovering. Let's
we didn't
tell
talk about the
people
discard, did we? Did we talk in depth about the discard? Because we were going through the processes, the idealization, love bombing, then there's a devaluation, and then there's the discard. Sally, you want to handle the discard, and then after the discard will definitely come the hoovering. So let's talk about the discard.
Well, we kind of did mention it when we were talking about them always having another supply available. But essentially, the discard is the point at which they have decided that you're no longer worthy. They've got another supply that's already in process and in progress. And so they're ready to just keep it moving and leave you. You know, the discard essentially is the point where you too, there might come a point where you have realized who they are. And when they recognize that you see them, they are going to try to walk away before it becomes an issue that you can point out. They never want to hear it, by the way. A narcissist is never going to accept if you say to them, you have narcissistic traits or you're a narcissist, never ever going to happen.
They will deny it.
Never.
Nothing is ever wrong with them.
Never. Then it's you are the problem. I'm not saying you're the problem. I'm just saying that's what they would say. Okay. So they will get to a point where whatever it was that initially they put you on a pedestal for, they will no longer love that thing. That's the thing they now hate about you. That's the thing that it disgusts them.
Yes.
And they're moving on to other supply. Straight and simple. That's it. We've discarded you now.
So from personal experience in terms of the love bombing, yes, I went through the love bombing process, then the devaluation. And just as you mentioned, the very thing that they loved you for is the very thing that they started to hate. So I was on television on Good Morning Antigua Barbuda, waking up every morning on people's televisions and happy-go-lucky and jovial, and they absolutely loved that. But when you hear that devaluation started to come, you chat too much, you can't go down the road and nobody talk to you, and you're always making people think that you're so wonderful and this and that, and all of a sudden I'm still there. You can be discarded and still be there in the same space. And they would have already discarded you emotionally because they have already found fuel outside. And you're there wondering, wow. And that is the most traumatic thing that could ever happen to you. If you've been discarded and you live in separate quarters, it hurts. But when you're discarded and you're living in the same space with that person, and it means exactly what it says, you've been thrown away. You get dashed away. You have been thrown away for something, a new shiny object, a new shiny toy, and sometimes it's flaunted in your face to make you feel even worse. Sometimes it's plastered on social media. Sometimes they're there in public and people are sending you pictures and that sort of thing. And you're still in that space. That is what the discard is. And I mean, it comes in different ways too, because people would have different experiences. Somebody ghosts you. You and this person have begun having a wonderful getting to know each other, and you start to date, and all of a sudden that person just ghosts you. You don't speak to them for months. So that's maybe a milder form.
And then the hoovering comes in.
The vacuum cleaner. They draw for the vacuum cleaner. And that's where that term came from. That's where that term came from. Hoovering is basically what it sounds like. When they probably have gone to the supply, or maybe they're low on supply. Let's say maybe that person traveled, or maybe that person figured them out, or that person is no longer valuable to them. They're going to come back and they're going to try to suck you back in. And what does a vacuum cleaner do? It sucks you back in, but eventually they're going to treat you like dirt.
Right back out.
All right. Right back out like dirt. And that's what the term hoovering comes from, but mainly sucking you back in. They're going to come back with the love bombing. And it's a cycle. It can be a cycle until you break it. So that is the pattern. Love bombing, idealization, the evaluation, the discard, then comes the hoover, and then you have a nasty, awful pattern making you spiral out of control emotionally and psychologically.
Yeah. I see two questions here in the chat section that I really want to pull up. This is the first one. There are two questions. The first one is, can a narcissist ever change?
We're going to say no, but let's let the clinician handle that one.
Before the clinician, I'm going to say no too.
No
to the no, to the no.
No.
Hell to the no. They do not.
They
cannot.
They can't and they don't.
They cannot fundamentally, because It's not a mental disorder, it's a personality disorder that needs therapy, and they will never go because nothing is wrong with them as far as they're concerned.
Hell to the no.
Not you, no.
Jamila said what I was going to say.
Hell to
I
the
was-
no.
What's that? I'm sorry, Therese.
Y'all are killing me. I was going to say, before the singing started, I was going to say that I'm going to put on my clinician hat again, and I am going to say that as a clinician, it is my responsibility to say that any human being can change if they want to. If they want to. But I also will hasten to add to that a narcissist to change is often slim to none. The likelihood,
Hell to the no.
the likelihood that a narcissistic person is going to walk in to my office and say, listen, I just realized I'm a narcissist. Can you help me? That's just not a thing that happens. That's not a thing that happens. Like, that's not a thing that a narcissist would say. A narcissist is not likely to even admit that they are a narcissist, which makes it even less likely that they will try to seek help for narcissism. So, yeah, what Marcella and Jamila said. No.
You want me to sing it again?
No.
I'm not really a singer.
No.
Hell to the no.
So that brings me to the second question, asked by the same person. This question also comes from Utica, and she's asking, is it possible to healthily navigate a relationship with a narcissist? What if you have one in your house, or you're in a relationship with one, or you have one in your office where you work? What if it's your boss? What do you do?
Leave. I'm kidding. It's there are very many.
I would say leave too, but
because there's so many different ways to try to navigate that. Now, from my experience in a toxic work environment, and I eventually had to leave. I absolutely had to leave. I was getting panic attacks and anxiety attacks in that place because it was so potent. And at the same time, I was actually going through a traumatic breakup. So I was ill-equipped to deal with an environment as toxic as that. And so I had to start looking for different jobs. I had to start sending out resumes and didn't tell a soul where I was going for fear of sabotage. But during the time being there, and it is very, very difficult, I'm not going to say it's a walk in the park, I had to actually implement Grey Rock. Now, that is a tactic that persons who are experiencing narcissistic issues can implement. And it's simply the Grey Rock method is where you become as bland as a rock. Good morning. Good morning. How's the weather today? It's raining. You don't engage. You don't sit with those people at lunch. You don't have personal conversations with them and tell them your secrets because it's likely to be used against you. You don't tell them anything that's happening in your life. You just keep your stories to yourself. Keep yourself to yourself. You eat at your desk if you have to, but always have a strategy to leave. I'm not sure how I would have handled it had I stayed. I probably would have had to become even a stronger person, but that was a time in my life where I absolutely had to leave, and Grey Rock helped me, despite the fact that I was a media person. I had to make sure that I'm doing my job, and that's all I'm doing. I am not going to go out beyond, how are the kids? They're fine. So that's the work aspect. Marcel, if you want to take on something else after Therese says what Shonda Shondel's question is on the screen.
Are you saying that a specialist or a therapist is unable to treat a narcissist or help? I am definitely not saying that. That's the one thing I am not saying at all. The therapist can help anyone who wants to be helped. So I am not saying the therapist is unable. I am saying that it is highly unlikely that the narcissist will walk in to seek help from the therapist. But if that narcissist were to walk in, oh, I can work with you. I can definitely work with you. But is the narcissist going to walk in? This
One
is
of
the
the
crux
things
of
about
Yes.
the narcissist on this very same issue is the fact that it would have to get very, very desperate for them to.
They would have to stand to lose something.
They would have to be really at rock bottom. And that brings me to Saran, exactly what I was just going to speak about. There's a guy on YouTube, I can't even remember his name right now, but I've been watching him.
Mental healness.
Mental healness. That's what he uses on YouTube. Been following him for a while. First saw him on TikTok, but he is what you call an aware narcissist. It means that he has been diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, and he has said it himself that the only reason that he finally went to a therapist, he said he went before, but that was just to play around and make his wife think he was doing something. That was manipulation. But when his wife actually said, I am leaving, I'm busting out of here, was when he finally was like, okay, do I want to keep her? Let me go and really get therapy. So he is managing it. He knows he still does things that are narcissistic. He still schemes and connives and manipulates. But going to therapy helps him to recognize his behavior. It helps him to take a bit more control of it. But he's a very rare case. There are not a lot of aware narcissists who are saying, yes, let me get therapy.
Yes, and there's also Professor Sam Vaknin. He's an older, I think he's British, older narcissist.
Yes, he's on YouTube.
Who tells you from top to bottom about his kind, and he refers to himself as his kind.
Yeah.
Because he knows what he is. And surprisingly, these two are actually using their own shortcomings to educate others, which is commendable, but that still doesn't stop them from being who they are.
Yeah.
Lee Hammock, yes.
Wow.
I just saw that.
Yes.
Mental healness is his
his
social media tag name.
Mental or
Lee Hammock.
mental mess.
Yes. Thanks, Saran.
Okay.
Boy, Saran, interactive boy.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes. Can we talk about isolation tactics and smearing?
Smear campaigns.
Leave that out. I mean,
you can't leave that out.
How does a narcissist go about isolating you, and why do they do this?
So that you don't have a support
isolate.
system. All abusers do that. All abusers may not be narcissists. Neither are all narcissist abusers.
All abusers are not narcissists, but all abusers isolate their partners.
So the isolation tactics is where you rob. Why do they? So let's just explain what isolation tactic is. And it's to rob you of your support system. And so I know I used to have issues with family coming over. Every time family was supposed to come over, there was a huge argument, huge blowout. Your family doesn't like me, and every time we have an argument, it's about them. And so after a while, I stopped family from coming over. After a while, I stopped going by family. And then what happens when people stop coming around? You are alone. And so if you don't have a support system, then they can have you, twist you, and turn you any which way they want. And that is what the isolation tactic is about. They isolate you from friends, family, your support system, so that you are unable to defend yourself. You're unable to leave, you're unable to defend yourself, and nobody knows what's going on in your life. Sal, is there anything you want to add to that?
Isolation, it's all part of the desire to control. It's all about control. There you go. Toy and Jacobs Frederick just said they isolate because they fear that you may speak about them and they hate looking like the bad person.
Yes.
And in connection with that, one of the things about the people who are experiencing narcissism, who are on the other end, usually people out there think we are crazy because people on the outside are not experiencing them as you who are in the intimate relationship with them are experiencing them. Because again, to the outside world, they're charismatic, they're fun, they're good vibes. But inside, it's a totally different thing. So if you say something, nobody really gets it or believes it because they're like, I've never seen this person like this. I'm sure you heard that a million times. No, that person would never do that. I've never seen that. They're always so fun, right? That's what usually tends to happen. So the isolation works in their favor because they are controlling the narrative. Controlling the narrative.
Thanks for that, Toy. Toyanna is actually my sister-in-law. Thank you for participating. Love you. So it's to rob you of your support system, and also that nobody knows what's happening, and so they don't look like the bad person. Because one thing they can't stand is being the bad guy, looking like the bad person. The smear campaign aspect of it is when the crap really hits the fan. Maybe you move out, or you start telling people what's really going on, or people start looking at things very closely and making assumptions. The smear campaign is where they start to tell people that you are the worst thing that God has ever put on this earth. And they have very many creative ways in which to do so. They totally demoralize you to family and friends. And sometimes they start doing it when they know that they're going to discard you. They start to pinch people on their ears and they say, you know what, something is really wrong with her. I think that
she might be losing it. She might be going crazy.
Really, really rough for me in there. I just can't figure out who this person is, and they start to make you look like you're off kilter. And then if you're going through a divorce or you're going through something, very dramatic where people are seeing it, all your laundry is being exposed, then you did the worst thing ever. Everything that they did, you did. So if they cheated, she cheated on me, and she lies. And we have to also cover pathological lying, right? But then, so they smear you. That's basically what it sounds like. They nasty up your name to others. And everybody's out there thinking, boy, and I thought butter couldn't melt in her mouth. I thought this of her, I thought that of her. Now look there, look what she do to man, or she's really not a really nice person, or he is not a really nice person. So that's what the smear campaign is. Sally, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think you've covered that pretty well. I think that, it's such a cycle, and there's so many. For me, it's really making people recognize that they are destructive. Yes. They're destructive to a life, greatly destructive, because it takes a long time to recover. It takes a long time to recover yourself. It takes a long time to recover your trust in just human beings, because your entire world would have been shifted psychologically. Your emotions would have changed. And I just think that, again, the reason that we are here today, we're not in our professional hats, we're talking about real life, is because we want anyone who is watching, anyone who's going to see the replay of this, to really start thinking about your life, looking around and asking yourself, is there someone who is a narcissist in my life? What are the signs? Do some research. study, get some knowledge, learn what it looks like, do a lot of reading, follow this guy on YouTube and TikTok, because the sooner you can get a handle on it, it's the sooner peace can return to your life.
Yes,
Otherwise, you are constantly going to be on a roller coaster of emotions. You're constantly going to not ever be 100% yourself. And it's just really important to understand the terms that we've used, understand the cycle, and so on.
But I wanted to add to that too. Knowledge is hugely important in this so that you can identify what you're dealing with. But that still doesn't cover the emotional aspect of things. Your emotions are still going to be flying all over the place. And that's where people like Therese comes in. And there is no shame in seeking therapy. In the Caribbean, we have this thing that going to therapy is taboo, or going to a psychologist means you're crazy or there's something wrong with you. If you have the bandwidth to understand that, look, there is something that I need to get over in order to make my life better, and it involves going to see a psychotherapist, then do it. Or talk to your friends. And sometimes people don't understand because people don't know what you're going through. Sometimes it's so covert, and that's where like the covert narcissists come in, because people don't know that you're being emotionally abused. People don't know that you're being gaslighted. People don't know that these people can make you look like you're the craziest person out there. So if you educate yourself, you understand what you're dealing with, you identify the patterns, and you've said, okay, fine, I think I'm dealing with this, then you go and you see a psychotherapist that can help you to navigate your way through all of this emotional turmoil.
Do we have questions?
That's good. I'm going to highlight one question, and then we're going to start wrapping up this discussion. And let me go ahead and want to go after this one question so that you can start gearing up. I want us to touch on childhood trauma and how that can make you more vulnerable to becoming the victim of a narcissist. How that makes you easy prey for falling into the web.
Yeah.
But let me just take this one question and then we go into that. I feel like this is an important question to tackle. In summary, Shondell is essentially asking, what would you do as a therapist to help a narcissist move past narcissistic behavior? And I want to say that it would be, the first thing I will say is that it would be a process of helping them to manage it. It would not be a process of helping them to cure it. And I'm going to add to that narcissistic personality disorder is not the only condition that you go to therapy to manage. Much of what you go to therapy for is to learn skills that help you to manage what you're living with and not necessarily to cure it. There are many things that you will have to live with that don't necessarily have a cure, but can be successfully managed. And you can go on to live a very functional life. Narcissistic personality disorder would be one of those things. And I think we kind of touched on it when we were talking about the young man on YouTube who spoke to the fact that he still has NPD. It's not like it disappeared. It's not like a magic cure, but he has learned skills. He now has skills and tools that help him to manage it. To manage his behavior. He can identify his behaviors, name them, and he has the skills now to manage them. And that is essentially what the therapeutic process would look like. More often than not, you would find a therapist using what we refer to as CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy for these types of disorders. And that is exactly what the name suggests. Cognitive, which is your head, cognitive behavioral therapy. And so that is a process of either changing your mind so you can change your behavior, but sometimes it actually goes the other way. Sometimes we encourage you to change your behaviors, and with practice, that begins to change your mindset. So it can go in both directions, and that is most likely the therapeutic intervention that is used in conditions like those. I encourage you to get online and look up CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Very interesting therapeutic method, very common, and Google will give you a million hits on that, so you can learn a little bit more about that. Okay, so now let's talk childhood trauma, and then after that, we can wind it up, folks. We're not going past 8 o'clock. Okay.
I'm looking at the time. I can't even believe that it's an hour and 35 minutes into this program. We've been talking. Boy, we really can talk, can't we?
Oh yeah. So, childhood trauma, various types of childhood trauma that make you more susceptible than other people to narcissistic behaviors and narcissistic people. Who wants to take this one?
Not me.
I can start.
I think you can start with your clinical perspective.
The clinical perspective, attachment issues, definitely. If you have attachment issues, if you have abandonment issues, you are easy prey for a narcissist, especially those abandonment issues. Oh, child. Self-esteem issues, self-acceptance issues, trust issues,
rejection issues.
All of those things make you more vulnerable to narcissistic behavior, because narcissists are experts at making you feel valued. During that grooming phase and the hoovering phase, they make you feel like you're the best thing since sliced bread. And that is probably the primary need of persons who live with childhood trauma, because children who are traumatized are deprived of the one thing that most children need more than anything, and that is attention. Attention, affection. They need that. That is what you use to nurture a child in a healthy way. They are deprived of that. They will go find it wherever they can. And a narcissist who is grooming you and hoovering you is going to shower you with those very things. The same things that your inner child never got. So what do? You get caught up in the web. Step into my parlor, said the spider to the fly and all.
Yes, indeed.
Anyway, you go ahead.
Let me also add to that. Well, you've expertly explained that. I'm not going to belabor that point before I lose my train of thought. What I think can also be added to that is what you see growing up, how things are being modeled to you, relationship styles, and how they're being modeled to you. So while childhood trauma plays a role, how you see people modeling behaviors, you will also pick it up, and you will adopt those patterns of attachment styles as well. And so all of those things follow you through life, and you might do the very same thing that your mom did when she met your dad. So those things play a huge role as well. So childhood trauma, what is being modeled to you, your attachment style is really what they like. And especially if you have codependent traits, which is what I'm trying to get at. If you were modeled codependency and you grow up being a codependent, that's a destructive attachment style, because narcissists are attracted to codependents, or what we term as empaths, as a slightly different terminology and slightly different meaning, but two things that are very similar. It means that you give yourself away. You overlove And especially if you're
Inside
with
joke, people. Inside joke.
I don't believe y'all did. I don't believe you,
Give
Miss
yourself
Jamila,
away.
did that. But okay.
When I said that, because we had a prep session yesterday, we had a joke around that I give myself away thing. And I'm not going to say any more. But yes, we do overlove. We give ourselves away to this individual. We love big and deep. We have huge hearts, and we will keep coming back. If we think, you know what, he had a bad childhood as well. And so you have this empathy for him and his bad childhood, or her and her bad childhood. And you think that you can change the individual, because codependents and empaths love deeply. And if they see that the person, the person that they're in love with was lacking certain things, they feel that they can give it to them. We are nurturers. We're fixers. We always like a project. So I think narcissists see that in someone who is lacking in, not necessarily all the time low self-esteem, but if they know what your shortcomings are, what you didn't get, and then they take time to also find out things about you. They do their research on you. They know which buttons to push. And so if you are lacking a certain thing, that's the one that they attach themselves to hook you in. And then that's the same thing that they will use to discard you. So.
Very true.
Yep.
Can I at this point, I'm going to share. We haven't really shared any personal stories.
No, we haven't. We've just been talking around it.
But as Jamila mentioned, the thing that is your personal issue is the thing they will use to discard you. I'm going to share the same story I shared with you all yesterday. Jamila knows the one because she was there. So I was once involved with somebody, and I had been getting to the point where I realized that they were really destroying me. They were really toxic on a number of levels, lies, money issues. They tend to always have money issues. They lie a lot. So we had gotten to that point. But because we are those type of people, we're still like, okay, today's going to be a good day. And as a matter of fact, that's one of the things narcissists tend to do. They act like the thing never happened. That's part of the crazy making. So on this particular day, the person invited me out. And I said, okay, in my mind, I am going. I do not want to start any trouble. I don't want to be any trouble. Maybe this will be a nice day. Okay? So we went to the beach. And when we got to the beach, it so happens that my friend Jamila and her family were at the beach. Now, of course, you're not going to see your friend and not go and say hi and hello and hug up your friend. So I went and I said hi to my friend. I spoke with her mom. I hugged up the children and whatnot. And then I went to another side of the beach because we did not come here together. We didn't make plans. Before I continue, before I end the story, my personal issue, I can tell you in life, is abandonment. Okay, for those of you who know me, I came from Dominica when I was 4, and it's a whole story. So abandonment is my main issue. Okay, I know it's the root of things for me. And so I have done a lot of work around it. You have to work on yourself, people. You have to learn what makes you tick and what makes you break. And once you learn those things, you have to be aware of what comes into your life. Abandonment, that was my issue. Do you know that by the time I went to the other side of the beach, and I am looking for the person that brought me to the beach, by the way, I have my own car, but no, we're going together because we're doing things together, right? When I looked around, the man had left the beach and left me there. Okay, I should be embarrassed to talk about this, but one of the things that happens when you've done your healing work is you don't care. Okay, it's sharing the truth. I'm sure I'm not the first and I'm not the last. Things happen, shit happens, awful things happen.
Yes.
The person had left. Now, initially, I thought, no, this can't be for real. They didn't just leave me at the beach, did they? So I called. I called about 20 times. The person never answered. And what had happened in that situation is what we call, another term, a narcissistic injury. In his mind, I made plans with Jamila. And instead of focusing 100% of my attention on him, I was focusing on my friend. That created a narcissistic injury, which caused him, instead of saying anything to me, to jump into his vehicle and abandon me.
To punish you.
To punish me and to embarrass me. That happened. This happened in real life.
Yep.
And so this is, I forgot where I was going with this, but we were talking about
childhood trauma, abandonment issues.
You know what I mean? This is one of the stories of many. But you know, in that moment, in his mind, he was embarrassing me, he was punishing me, and he used what he knew about my core trauma to wound me. There you go. There you have it.
That's the greatest example.
Mm.
And you can apply that to any other aspect of your life where you, in Marcel's story, you'll go, oh, so that's what it was.
Wow.
You know, and then of course the silent treatment, not answering not picking up the phone, and he didn't speak with you for days, and then afterwards came back and acted like nothing happened.
Like nothing happened.
What's going on, babe?
Yeah.
Hey, baby.
Look at her laughing. We can laugh about this now, right?
Yeah, I can listen. I couldn't. At that time, it's so fortunate. One of the things that I am happy to say is that I'm always cared for. My ancestors take care of me, okay? So on that day when I was abandoned at the beach, in terms of how I was going to get home, thankfully, Jamila would have taken me home for sure. Tizzy happened to be at the beach that day. Tizzy, our great songstress. Another media friend happened to be at the beach as well that day. All of those people spoke to me while I was there, by the way. And another friend of ours named Makisa. So there were 4 opportunities for me to get home. And I was grateful for that. But I also was like, this has to be the Twilight Zone. This didn't really just happen. Is this a movie? It leaves you in such a state of shock and such disbelief that you really can't believe this happened to you. And you're just like, that is crazy.
And that was a beach out of town as well. That was a beach out of town.
Long day.
Wow, that would have been a long walk,
boy.
But I just wanted to segue a little bit. What I found with that situation, Sela, is that you can't be more than them. You know, maybe he saw you doing your social butterfly thing and he felt like, who does she think she is? She came here with me and she's fraternizing with all these people. Because I know in my intimate relationship and even past friendships, those people did not appreciate that, okay, if I go down the street with you, I'm likely to be spoken to by several people. You could see their faces change, because that's another term. Let's add another term to the glossary: pathological envy. So pathological envy is that even if you're not in the same field as someone, once you get any sort of recognition, compliments, or whatever the case may be, relating to what your giftings are, within your sphere of influence or whatever the case may be, there will be this silent but deadly, deep-seated envy that they carry. So let's segue a little bit from ex-partners and just slip into former friendships where some people, and you only realize this after a long time, only wanted to be around you because of who they can meet through you, who you can connect them with. Maybe if we're going somewhere, then maybe some of the light will drop off on me, kind of thing. But if it does and you appear more than, they absolutely don't like that. I've had a particular friend walk away from me in the supermarket, totally ticked off that I was stopped by so many people. And it's not that we were in a hurry. She just did not like the attention. And then people would come up to me and talk. And maybe sometimes they rudely don't acknowledge her, but maybe they just quickly want to say something to me or whatever. And you would see that look on her face and she would storm off. Needless to say, that person and I are no longer friends. And not just because of that particular incident, but several other things. The manipulation, snide remarks, the quiet put downs, the competition that you didn't even know you were in. So pathological envy is another thing that you may experience in friendships and in intimate relationships, where even your partner is envious of you. And you're there just being your good old self. Yeah. You're not even realizing that you're offending anyone. So they're very, very, we all have our own insecurities, but they are pathologically insecure people. And that false self is just what it is, a false self. They're not real. And when that mask slips and you see who they are, it's crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah. Sleeping with the enemy. All right. So we are going to, here's how we're going to wrap this up. I'm going to highlight a few comments from the comment section, just the last few comments. I'm going to pick a few and I'm going to highlight them. If it's a question, we'll try to tackle it real fast. And then we are going to just give our parting comments and we're going to wrap this up. Okay. We are literally at 3 minutes from the top of the hour. I don't know how we're going to pull this off. All right. Here's the first one. This is an interesting one. I just have to bring this one up. Are narcissists usually attracted to each other? This is such an interesting question.
It is.
Can a narcissist date a narcissist? I don't know.
I have to say, I haven't seen it, but what I've seen is that narcissists have narcissistic friends.
Precisely.
They have their circle of narcissist friends.
And there's usually the alpha within the group. I've seen it. I've seen that dynamic. There's usually the alpha within the group and the others are followers. And then, of course, you have your flying monkeys within that group as well. That's another term. Oh, goodness. I know we're wrapping up. Let me not throw any more terminologies. We're going to save that for
another time. We'll leave that for part 2.
See
what I did there?
We kind of heard you say something about part 2, but I don't remember us having that discussion.
Here we go. Next comment. I think it's really important to remember, as you all said, narcissistic relationships aren't just in love ships. Mm-hmm. I know a narcissist who has and continues to leave a string of damaged lovers, but the relationship that is most painful to see play out is their relationship with their mother. Ooh. The mother is true. The mother is like a battered woman who can't leave. And it shows physically and emotionally because, well, how is she going to leave? It's her son.
It's her son.
Yeah. What do you do if you have a son who is a narcissist?
That's a question for next time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Part 2, Marcella, part 2. All right.
I believe Shondell said that you should add a gentleman to the panel. So I'm going to go with her. There you go. You should add a guy to part 2, and we can hear more from that guy. Someone who is as experienced experts as we are.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that.
We'll see, because it's always a clean dose about us. Hello.
Yes, this platform.
So we do. To be honest, we do. We might need a male perspective.
But might we really though?
I see.
I beg in, Shonda. I beg in.
Marcella, pull your claws back in, Marcella. So Shondell says, I think you need a male audience or interaction and add someone on the panel as well. We just might do that. Mm-hmm. I do appreciate all that is being said, but it comes across as one-sided and that females are the only ones that are affected, or perhaps I missed that part of the discussion.
You did.
Yeah, we did have that disclaimer. We did.
We put out that disclaimer pretty early. There are female narcissists and there are male narcissists. They come in all types.
And in all relationships too. We happen to be talking about intimate relationships because those are the ones that have most affected and scarred us. But we also recognize that as a result of being in those intimate relationships, we were able to look at other forms of narcissism around us, other people, other family members or work colleagues, etc. You know, they are all around us.
Here's another interesting question. In his mind, was he acting in self-defense because you caused a narcissistic injury? Do they view it as an act of self-defense when they abandon you or do something to embarrass you?
They view it as a way of almost disciplining you to an extent. Okay? It's almost like, let me show you who's in charge.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you? How dare you talk to somebody other than me?
Yeah.
All
right. Let me see if there's anything else I want to highlight. I'll just bring up this last one. Another person who is begging for a male perspective.
Okay, Saran.
Clearly I missed a great discussion. We'll watch the replay, so I'm ready for part 2. Did you hear that, Marcella? Did you hear that? Look at this other comment right here.
Was that the music going up for the
Is that the curtain closing?
Is that the curtain closing?
Look at what Aisha is saying. Look at this.
Aisha, whose friend are you really? I'm Of course, if you are invited back, the tag team shall return.
But listen to this now. I can see this being a 4-part series easily.
Okay, now, come on, girls.
I need to take a drink to that. Let's drink to that.
Aisha is just, we're going down the rabbit hole.
I should put down that drink, okay? Both of you.
I wonder what Aisha is drinking.
I love it.
All right, ladies, let's just give our parting shot and then we are going to end this broadcast. So I'll give each of you the opportunity to give a parting shot. We'll start with Marcella. What is your parting word for our listeners tonight?
My parting word for you, dear listener, watcher, person who is following Always a Queen, there's nothing wrong with you, okay? You need to, if you are finding that you're in this situation, you need to protect your peace, which means you need to become more aware and knowledgeable. And if you need help, get help. And also run. Protect your peace. Okay? Seriously, it's very important. Thank you very much for watching and thank you for the invitation, Therese. You know, this is not what I was planning to do on a Sunday evening, but it was indeed very enjoyable.
Absolutely. All right, Jamila.
I absolutely enjoyed myself as well and really also appreciated being able to sit here and share a little bit of our experiences. I know we didn't get a chance to go in depth because my goodness, it's almost 2 hours and we barely touched the tip of the iceberg. So maybe Aisha would definitely get that 4-part series she's begging for. But my parting words are, you are stronger than you think. It is a difficult thing coming through narcissistic abuse, a difficult thing coming through toxic relationships. And getting up and walking is not easy. But when you do, that person that comes out of that trauma is going to be the strongest, most beautiful person. So I know that there's a saying that says you have to go through to come through. Unfortunately, that is indeed the case. But here we are living and breathing examples of what you can come out of, even though it seems like you went through hell. If you're going to go through hell, walk like you own the place. So that's those are my parting words. You're stronger than you think. I really believe that.
Absolutely. And my parting shot is this. If you were listening to this program tonight and whatever we were saying was resonating with you, and you are sitting there saying to yourself, my goodness, they are talking about me. This is happening to me. Get help.
Yes.
Help is available. Do not be ashamed. You are not the first. You will not be the last. Let me tell you, all three of the women you see sitting here on this screen have come through the fire that you are currently walking through. And look at us. We don't even look like what we've been through because, hello?
I don't think so.
No, with our fine selves.
No, I can't see.
The whole point is you can and you will come through this, but you have to rise up and get help. You may not be able to pull yourself out and pull yourself up by the bootstraps, as they say, without some help. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. If you don't want to walk into somebody's office, inbox me.
Yes.
Navigate your way to the Always a Queen, the Metamorphosis platform, and just send me an inbox message. Nobody will know. And I can guide you to the resources that you need so that you can save your life. But get help. Okay? And that's my parting shot for tonight. So on that note, I am going to end the broadcast in the same way that I always do. Oh, and remember, last Sunday of every month, we are back with another broadcast. So you're going to see us again on the last Sunday of May. It's going to come around much quicker than you think. I know you're thinking, oh my goodness, I have to wait till the end of May. What? It's right around the corner. I promise. So we'll see you again last Sunday of May. But in the meantime, I want to leave you all with love and light and lots of positive energies. And remember, be a beautiful week. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.